All right.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's actually talk about it.
Oh, she's not keeping time.
Oh, I she has to watch. I always borrow.
Alright, actually I don't even need it really. Okay.
Okay.
Am I good? Alright. My name is Gabriel.MPG. I'm going to talk to you guys about marijuana today. And my proposition is that marijuana prohibition is uneconomical. My three major points are: 1, marijuana prohibition causes large government expenditures. 2, legalization would bring in tax revenue and better health standards. 3, prohibition costs will rise as arrests and usage increases. So some background on marijuana prohibition. Marijuana is federally prohibited in the U.S. It's been federally prohibited in the U.S. since the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. The dominant leader of prohibition of marijuana was Harry J. Anslinger, and he put out all kinds of propaganda into the public to influence the public's attitude towards the drug. Today, tens of millions of people frequently or infrequently smoke try marijuana. Of those millions of people, millions more have been arrested for mere possession. The drug is relatively cheaper and easier to obtain than it once was, and smaller age groups are starting to use it. And when we look at these facts, and they probably try to understand where all the tax money is going to, since the public's paying for all of it. So on to my first point, prohibition causes large government expenditures. Now, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, between 1991 and 2002, the domestic law enforcement component of the federal drug control budget increased from $4.6 billion to $9.5 billion. Now, this directly relates to an increase in marijuana possession arrests during this time. Researchers have estimated that in 2001 alone, 3% or $2.1 billion of the entire nation's law enforcement budget was spent on marijuana prohibition, and of this $2.1 billion, $1.7 billion was spent just on possession, and not on the actual people who make the stuff. A team of researchers from the World Economic Journal present data from a DAA budget for the period 1920 to 2000. The graph from the data shows that until the late 1960s, drug enforcement budget was extremely low, and then started to climb by impressive amounts every few years. For instance, between 1970 and 1998, the per capita budget of the DAA increased tenfold. The total cost of marijuana prohibition, which includes law enforcement, judicial proceedings, and imprisonment, is estimated to be between $5 and $15 billion a year. My second major point is that the legalization of marijuana allows a taxation and regulation that could follow making it a consumer product. Jeffrey Miron, a top economist from Harvard University, states that legalization would save $7.7 billion annually in government expenditures, and it could also generate tax revenue of about $6.2 billion if it were taxed at rates comparable to that of alcohol and tobacco. Regulation would also bring about proper health standards being met. Mohammed El Soli, director of the Ole Miss's Pot Project at the University of Mississippi, states that the average THC levels in marijuana today are much higher than those levels years ago, and that they'll continue to rise. Criminals, who process and distribute marijuana today, they don't, have health standards for marijuana. I mean, they don't have concern for, people's health. So making it, a consumer product would obviously allow, organizations like the FDA to, process marijuana and distribute it, make sure there are actual health standards that, make it, a better product. My third major point is the cost of prohibition are going to rise significantly as arrests for possession and the number of people who smoke marijuana exponentially rises. The ACLU created a graph from data issued by the DAA that shows that marijuana possession rate arrests have been exponentially growing every year since the late 1960s. This report shows that the rate of arrests has more than doubled from 131 per 100,000 persons to 265 per 100,000 persons. Researchers from the University of Michigan's Monitoring the Future project released a data graph that shows marijuana use among 12th graders has been getting higher and higher since about 1993. This data, along with data on marijuana's possession arrests from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, shows that as arrests increase, usage increases because criminals who sell it can merely can set lower prices and distribute it better. A report from the U.S. State Department shows that marijuana production in Mexico has risen 35%, and it's created about 30,000 acres of marijuana, and has created profits from between $8 to $25 billion for drug lords. My conclusion is that these points, give ample evidence that marijuana prohibition is uneconomical, and it's only become more costly because the drug is becoming more available. It's prices going down. THC levels is becoming more attractive to smaller and smaller age groups. The absolute trend that can be seen is that arrest for possession increase, usage increases, and it shows that the extreme financial burden that it has on taxpayers. So a better way is probably to try to get rid of to lower the demand of marijuana would definitely be to have more educational programs to actually teach people about things that they could be doing in substitute marijuana instead of just forcibly taking it from them and putting a financial burden on us. Thank you.
All right, the phrasing of the proposition is a little bit awkward, but your proposition is clear. There's a good layout of what the secondary points are going to be. I think you need to make stronger inferences on the points. The first point, it just describes how much money we are spending. The argument here needs to be that we can't afford to save that or spend that money, or that the costs are going to grow exponentially over the years. The last piece of data that you had on that point was 2002, so it's almost 8 years old that you're giving us data on those particular points, and I think that's a little problematic. On the second point, you had some good information about estimated tax revenues. The methodology used in that study could be supported a little bit more. After that, there's some arguments about health issues, and I thought that the health issues material was underdeveloped. You just kind of give us some hypotheticals on that, and you've got the one piece of factual data about the THC content. It sounds like they're getting better product for their money rather than that there's some problem with it. So I'm not exactly sure what you mean by a health risk on that particular point. And on the third point, I think that you've got some information, again, about spending. I did not hear the dates on that, but again, it didn't sound like it was very contemporary information. And the stuff on the drug lords and the possible impact that that has economically needs to be developed a little bit more. All the history lesson about Harry Anslinger is completely irrelevant to the argument that you're presenting. The argument about education at the end is an assertion, and it doesn't apply to your main point, so you should leave that out of the argument also. All right, thank you.